Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast, brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and join me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind that I don't know what to come up with this week. I'm a little dumbfounded about my, I think your friend jinxed us, because that's all I have in my head, actually, is your comment that you said your friend made that he didn't like it when you were somewhere. And to be honest, this week you're not really anywhere, but you have a lovely cover of a book, I would say, is your background.
It's more of a vibe this week than a setting, right? The Argylle print background. It is fitting with the theme this week. So, but yeah, not a location.
No, it's not. And you have to watch the movie to see some really cool locations. I would say that. But yeah, in this podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics, which I really hope we get into. We need to. There's some really great classics out there I want to talk about, but we also cover the latest blockbusters. And we're now on episode 29, and we're going to dive into the world of espionage with Matthew Vaughn's Argylle. But before we get into all of that, we want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on every single social media platform at Sean Taj. Been sharing some really fun stuff. I got more fun stuff coming y'all's way. Follow Nerdtropolis at Nerdtropolis as well. And like I said, it's on every single social media platform you can think of. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, where can they find you where you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
Yeah, you can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms, over weekly at Fresh Out the Box, Fresh Out the Podcast, and posting movies I'm watching on Letterboxd, doing that quite often.
There's so many social media platforms these days, and it's hard to tackle all of them. So follow us on whatever y'all can. I would say that. Letterboxd has been fun. We can grow that for Drew and I. Also, Twitter/X would be nice, but I would say our YouTube channel is growing like crazy. So don't forget to catch up on past episodes of the Moviegoers Society and tune into my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel. So please like, comment, subscribe. We got some fun stuff on there as well. We're starting to add some memberships, some other things you can do on there, and there's more to come. I got a lot of awesome interviews. I just did one with actually John Cryer.
Exciting. Is it about his new show?
Yes, Extended Family, and I did with Donald Faison as well. I got one dropping tomorrow, or I guess Tuesday, for this brand new Nickelodeon show called Rock Paper Scissors, and it stars Carlos Alazraqui, who that was my first Nerdtropolis interview, and also Ron Funches, which is a comedian, and
yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff. He's in the Trolls movies. That's what I think of. He actually was just in a new a live action trailer for the new Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League video game. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's got Will Arnett and him in it, and it's actually pretty funny.
He also voices King Shark in the Harley Quinn show.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he does.
So I mean, which is crazy. I have to say this. I know we're getting a little behind here, but it is wild that his voice, you know, being what it is, he does some really cool stuff. I will say that
he has a memorable voice.
He does. Tom Lennon, I also is part of this cast. Officer Dangle from Reno as well, and something. So it's actually a really fun interview. As I was editing it, it was I was just laughing as I was editing this interview. So more to come too. I'm sitting on other stuff as well. I need to get them out. Got some surprising ones I have not mentioned that are coming out as well. So please subscribe. Enjoy our growing channel. Enjoy our website, our Facebook. Everything is growing, which is great, but we would love more support from all the fellow nerds out there. But Drew and I got to see the latest Matthew Vaughn film, Argylle, together, which is awesome. We love seeing movies together when we can. And it does offer a fun glimpse into the complex realm of espionage. Like, espionage can be a tricky thing depending on the type of movie, but Matthew Vaughn decided to tackle this film, and it does offer a little bit of intrigue and does do some good job at deception. Great cast as well. And to be honest, it does have you guessing what the twists and turns are. It kind of goes back and forth, Drew, right? Were you kind of trying to figure out what was going on? You thought you know where it was going, but you really didn't. Some guesses were right, some guesses were wrong. Is that how you felt in the beginning watching this?
Surprisingly, I didn't like the main twist or kind of reveal in it. I honestly had not guessed, and it's one of those things where afterwards I'm like, how did I not realize this is what it was going to be? But yeah, there's I feel like the first half is twist light, and then once there is kind of a reveal about midway through, then it's just like constantly trying to throw you for loops with a lot of back and forth. Almost, it's almost tiring as you're watching it. There's a lot.
That was true. But I mean, the twist and turns is a positive thing for this movie. They did a pretty good job kind of delivering something different and fun. The film has a great cast. Okay. It's led by Bryce Dallas Howard, which you all know. She is joined by Sam Rockwell, which it's like he's not in enough things.
I love Sam Rockwell. I've been a huge fan of Sam Rockwell. I think when I was younger, one of the first things that he really made an impression on me in was in The Green Mile. He's one of the prisoners there on death row, and then he's just one that it doesn't matter the quality of the movie. If he's in it, he's usually interesting. I think he's a very interesting, fascinating actor to watch. You know, he's been in the big blockbusters, like he's been in the MCU. You know, he's in Iron Man 2, but he's been in a lot of stuff.
He might be back for the MCU, to be honest. For what is it called, Armor Wars? He might come back. Hopefully that'll be as Justin Hammer. I just watched Vice on Netflix maybe a couple of months ago, and now I have a problem looking at Sam Rockwell and not seeing George W. Bush in the face. It's just like that's all I see now when I see Sam Rockwell.
That's right, I forgot he was Bush in the movie. Yeah, that's right.
And it's just weird. I don't know, because of his performance is so great in Vice, and they obviously don't look alike, but there's something, maybe the eyes or something, that just reminds me of George W. Bush. So like now every time I see Sam Rockwell, I just see Bush, which is interesting. But yeah, he's in this film. To be honest, the highlight of the film, the star in this film for me. But there's also Henry Cavill and John Cena and Dua Lipa, which I didn't recognize her in that. I'm gonna call it a micro role. It's not that small, but she comes and goes, I guess we can say.
You're bringing up a good point here, which is just to say, like, this is a pretty star-studded cast. I don't know if you even mentioned like Samuel Jackson's in this, Ariana DeBose, like a bunch of people, Catherine O'Hara, Bryan Cranston. And when you see the posters, when you see the trailers, it's like Henry Cavill front and center. Dua Lipa is all over the trailers and the marketing materials, which makes sense because she's a huge star. And there's all these exciting actors, and it almost kind of buries the fact that like Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell are the leads of this movie. They get the most screen time. They have the biggest roles. But I feel like it's kind of interesting that the marketing is almost playing them down and showing more of like Henry Cavill and John Cena and Samuel L. Jackson and Dua Lipa and these people that have smaller roles in the movie.
Yeah, and it's really like Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, and Henry Cavill. Like those are really the three. And we're not going to get too spoilery, maybe towards the end. But yeah, the cast is really good. And to be honest, I like seeing Henry in this. And all I could think of is like very Street Fighter Guile haircut. Did you notice this haircut?
Yes.
All I could think
absolutely.
is Guile.
How could you not notice the haircut?
Which was interesting.
Oh, man.
But then, you know, looking sharp in his stature, I'm like, please give us a live action Archer film. Please put him in there. He's not Bond. That's not going to be him anymore. I'm sure like after this and espionage stuff, put him in something silly that's espionage filled. And that's like a joke on James Bond, which obviously he lost that role before. And they were thinking maybe he could be the future, but I think he's done with like chasing Bond. And I think being Archer would be ideal for him. Would you watch that?
Oh, absolutely. In a heartbeat.
Yeah, like that's what they do. But yeah, great cast that you mentioned. And that's another positive. So we got a couple positives already for this film. But despite the solid strengths with, you know, some twists and turns, the casting, this movie does suffer with a few other things, where it starts with pacing. Oh my God. The pacing in this film is horrific to me, where things get drawn out. It starts off really slow and takes a little too long to set up kind of like the adrenaline rush of the film, and kind of doesn't make you as interested as you could. How long is the runtime? It's like 2 hours.
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It's 139 minutes. It's long.
Yeah. I just feel it's a tedious movie to watch that has a lot of great stuff about it. And that's really the beginning of the issue. With there's a few others, but that's really the main probably issue for me was how much it was dragging. A lot of scenes were way too long. And then like your brain has to think too. Your brain's thinking at the same time with these twists and turns too. It's not a movie you can sit back and relax and just really enjoy. There's a lot of questions being pulled in and kind of shuffling you around mentally watching that. How'd you feel watching this with that long time runtime?
Yeah, it's really long. I felt the runtime. Like for those who don't know, the plot of the movie is essentially Bryce Dallas Howard's character is Ellie Conway, and she's like a writer, and she's written this series of spy novels called Argylle. And when she I guess like the events of the books that she's writing have actually aligned with like some real life potential events. So there's two different groups that are after her. So she becomes involved in the spy caper based solely on these books that she's written. And I guess in her mind, when she's imagining the books, Agent Argylle, who's the main character in her novels, is Henry Cavill. Like that's who Henry Cavill's playing. So constantly throughout the action, as she's going through these crazy scenarios, she's imagining her character, her book character, Agent Argylle, kind of being there with her, and he's played by Henry Cavill. So he essentially plays a fictional character in the world of this movie. So he doesn't talk very much because a lot of times he's there more as like a visual representation of like the action that's happening. I don't know. It's really interesting.
He's a sexy visual representation of Sam Rockwell when he's doing his action scenes. They interchange back and forth, which is actually done brilliantly. Like it is filmed really great. The choreograph, the fighting sequences is really great and very impressive. And one of the highlights of the film is cutting through Sam Rockwell and Henry Cavill doing the same exact movements, and what Bryce Dallas Howard character sees in her head, what's really happening. That was really probably one of the coolest parts of the film.
And I think that a lot of what Matthew Vaughn, who's the director and writer here, right? He wrote it. I think he wrote it.
He did not write it, I believe. So that's what I found a little odd. I don't think he has full writing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Which is
okay.
Interesting because he usually writes his own stuff, but apparently someone came out to write this one.
Well, like I'll say this about Matthew Vaughn. I feel like in more recent years, because the Kingsman series is kind of polarizing depending on who you speak to, right? Like there are people that love that franchise and there's people that hate it. I personally, the first one in particular, really, really like it. And a lot of the things that Matthew Vaughn's done in the past, I really like Stardust. I like the first Kick-Ass.
I forgot it as Stardust. Like that actually was a really good film. And so I need to rewatch that.
X-Men First Class might be my favorite X-Men movie, like not including Logan. Like I love X-Men First Class. That he it's the only X-Men franchise movie Matthew Vaughn directed. And then like I said, pretty much after X-Men First Class, Matthew Vaughn is strictly doing Kingsman stuff, like Kingsman and Kingsman the Golden Circle, and then the Kingsman, which the Kingsman is the one that I really wasn't a fan of.
But did you like it better than the second one? Like I said, I love the first one.
No.
The second one I was not really feeling that well in the second half because I thought it got too jokey. Maybe I did like what they were trying to do with the Kingsman. It was better than the second one, but
see, and I still liked the second Kingsman movie more than the Kingsman. The Kingsman I found incredibly uninteresting. But that's the thing is like even if I feel that way about the movie, like at least Matthew Vaughn typically has enough style and pizzazz that like I'm interested in what he has to do. And I feel like the conversation about Argylle before it even came out was like a little mixed. Like people were kind of wanting to dogpile on this movie, but I was like, you know what? I have faith in Matthew Vaughn. I want to go see it. I want to at least see the style. It could be really violent. There could be a lot of humor here. And instead it's kind of like it doesn't want to lean too far in any one direction, which makes it almost a little boring in that way. Like you said, the pacing's already off. It's way too long.
It's PG-13, by the way, which I was surprised about. And obviously you could tell watching it. And I think he even said that he was trying to make it R. He was saying the studio didn't want headshots, shoot them in the chest, for the shots. And he was like, what's really the difference? So he wanted to make it a little harder R, but that didn't happen, which probably would have helped a little bit.
Yeah, like I really do think so because, Kingsman. Maybe this is a controversial statement, but like I kind of like how crude and violent those movies are, even if it is kind of like juvenile in some ways. Like I like that stuff, and this. I at least thought this was going to have that, and it doesn't. So instead, you get this like uh, I don't know, and everything, even with the style in this, like the big action scenes are like fine, but I feel like some of them are supposed to be really funny, or they think that they're really funny, and like I didn't think they were that funny or that interesting. Even the music, needle drops, like I didn't think were very
Some
good.
were good, and then a couple more good. I feel like he was trying to be like James Gunn, right? Put in some stylish music to make it work, and a couple I thought did, but then it went too long. It's like the whole song is being played, and it's like we don't want the whole song being played. I had an issue with the CGI. You could tell a lot of it was on the blue screen stuff, and the cat is so fake looking. I don't think they even used a real cat once. Maybe there's one scene they did, maybe one. And to be honest, I thought the cat was going to have a more important role, but it really doesn't. It's not even a sidekick or anything. It's just something that's brought. It's like bringing your phone along on the trip. It's just bringing the cat's just there. I thought
Yeah,
that
there's
was
a
odd
couple
too.
comedic moments that come from the cat specifically, but it's like still feels like there's more that they could have done there. Yeah, I feel like the whole movie just doesn't really look very good. The whole thing looks like it was filmed on green screen, and the action scenes and everything, it's all just like the CG is not very good. I don't know. It's just everything in this movie kind of left something to be desired. And even at the end, a big action scene that I'll say involves ice skating.
Oh, that made no
On
sense to me. I don't know how that's
no,
possible.
it didn't. And on paper, it should have been really fun. But I think I was just so kind of done with the movie by that point anyway that I was just over it. Like I was just ready to see how it all ended. It tries to cram in so many different spy tropes, especially in the second half of the movie. It's almost exhausting to watch.
I I liked Bryan Cranston in general. I didn't like him in this movie. He wasn't believable to me as his character, to be honest. It's hard for me to,
Mhm.
even him playing like those types of roles in the past, I couldn't buy it. It was hard for me to buy some of the characters played by the actors in here. I had an issue with that. And yeah, seeing Bryan Cranston in the movie, to be honest, is kind of weird to me. He's such a TV person to me and does a great job in it. When you bring him into the film side, it's hard to see past the amazing stuff he has done on television and to believe the role he's playing. Going back to that ice skating scene, I don't know how that makes sense. Wouldn't you just use your normal feet in oil to skate around in oil? You don't need
Yeah,
blades on
it's the whole
concrete.
thing is it's definitely asking you to suspend disbelief, which which is typically fine, but in this one in particular I found it hard.
Yeah, and I thought there was gonna be an explosion here and there. And there's a really funny like scene with smoke. That's all I'm gonna say. But
Mhm.
that kind of went a little too long, I thought.
It went too long, and that was one where I was like, "Oh, I feel like you could have had a better needle drop here, like a song that really made this fun." And instead, I found it to be a little lackluster. I will say, I really like Sam Rockwell in this movie. I especially like him in his first appearance where he has the long hair and the beard and he looks really scraggly. And then he says he's a spy, and you're like, and he's obviously not a conventional spy at all. I really liked that, but it's only for one scene. And then he cleans up after and he never has that look. I'm like, oh, you should have kept him that way the whole movie. And then I just kind of feel like Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell have so much screen time together, and like mild spoiler, just warning here, but there's like a little bit of a romance between them ish, and I just feel like they don't have that much chemistry. I was not really buying it, and this is coming from someone who, like, I love Sam Rockwell. Like, to me, put him in every movie. I don't know. I don't want to say he was miscast here because, like I said, that first scene where he shows up, he is an unconventional spy. He fits that perfectly. But when you try to throw in the romance with it was not working for me as much. So it's a shame. There's a lot of people in this movie I really like, but almost every single one of them seems like underused or not as well utilized as they could have been.
Yeah, and to be honest, without Sam Rockwell, like I don't think this movie would have been even enjoyable at the least. And there's a lot of it's been like dragged online for most of the critics. I didn't really drag it as much in my review, but I know a lot of people didn't like it. The audience is a little mixed on it. First off, did you see the box office numbers?
Yeah,
Really,
it's not doing
it's to
well.
be honest, I'm gonna say it's pretty pathetic with such a cast like this in a Matthew Vaughn film, and it's February now. It needs to have bigger numbers than what is it, 35 million worldwide. Um, that's domestically that's 18 million, and it says it's what 3,600 theaters almost. So it made barely $10,000 per theater was that, and that's pretty sad numbers right there. I don't know how a film like this, even at PG-13, I think it would have made more money if it was R. That
And
probably would have helped some of it.
and supposedly, like, I don't know if this is official, but like allegedly Apple Original Films spent like $200 million on this movie, which
You're
that
kidding.
is
Oh
a
man.
whole lot of money. Probably most of that's going to the cast here, because how else do you get all these people on screen together? Because it certainly didn't go into the CG budget or anything like that, because the whole movie just doesn't really look that great. I'm like, where are these funds being allocated here to, unless it's to the talent? That's a lot for Apple to spend, which, worth noting, this is another Apple original film. They partnered with Universal for distribution, so this kind of follows in the same path as Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon, who they had different distributors for, but this movie will end up on the Apple TV service at some point in the future, streaming there. But yeah, this is looking to be the first kind of mega flop of the year. There's been other movies that have been underperforming, but none of those movies cost $200 million to make. So this is pretty rough going for Argylle.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into some big spoiler right now, which I really don't think it's even a spoiler for the movie because I didn't see any connection really, to be honest. But that end, did it happen right after the credits?
There's the credits start, and there's maybe like 2 minutes of credits, and then there is a mid-credit scene, which is one of the most, if not the most, shoehorned in mid-credit scene in recent memory.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. It was kind of cool at first, being like, "This is what is going on here," but I was like just dumbfounded at the same time, having more questions and answers from just a very short scene that pans. Go ahead and tell what it is, because I want to backtrack a little bit after this to kind of how the film ends too, because that was really confusing to me as well.
I'll do my best to recount it, because it barely even makes sense. But essentially, mid credits, you see a scene, and you see a bar that is called the Kingsman, if I'm remembering correctly. The first thing you see is the bar, and you're like, oh, immediately it clicked in my brain of like, they're tying in Argylle into the Kingsman universe. And in the scene, there is a young man at a bar conversing with a like a bartender, and when the bartender asks him his name, he says his name is I believe it's Aubrey Argylle. So he says his name is Argylle. So Aubrey Argylle is played by actor Louis Partridge in this scene, and all this scene did is leave me with so many questions.
It
I'm
made
like,
you
oh,
throw away the movie you just watched. Be like, what is this Argyle we're trying to keep up with in this film? And now you're introduced the real Argyle, apparently, and everything else was just, what were we wasting our 2 hours and 20 minutes with, is all I have to say.
but it's like, is Argylle, who is apparently in the Kingsman service, is Argylle a young version of the Henry Cavill character in the novel, and this is like a prequel novel that's set in the Argylle universe that's connected to Kingsman? Or is this, a different character? Or is it just the character just shares a name for no reason, and we just have a character named Argylle in the Kingsman universe? It just makes no sense. It felt totally tacked on, and irrelevant, and all it does is leave you scratching your head after seeing the scene. It was kind of a turnoff to me, like in a movie that I was already kind of mixed on and unsure of. You throw in this in credit scene that just left a pretty bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, especially a movie that's not written by Matthew Vaughn. I'm like, how did someone pitch this to you? Probably not as a Kingsman movie at all, just for you to do. And then you decided, I'm going to make it part of my universe. And another spoiler, probably not, I don't know how bad, like big of a spoiler it is, but at the end of the movie, You have Henry Cavill show up in a real flesh as this,
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot that
yeah,
happened too.
as like a hick fan of oh, what's is it? What's her first name? Conway.
Ellie
Ellie
Conway.
Conway, as a fan of her books, and so like now like she has to have seen him before to have this imagination, and it just opens up like, why is he there? Who is he in this real world? And another thing too, like, is he an agent? Dressed like a hick with a mullet. It was interesting. I don't know, just more confusing things, but apparently they're going to make more movies. But all I can see right now is Matthew Vaughn is working on two Kingsman movies: The King's Man, maybe they call it The Traitor King, and then Kingsman: The Blue Blood. Um, but I don't see Argylle 2 anywhere. But maybe.
Based on the box office, I think Matthew Vaughn's going to have a real hard time making any more Argylle movies, and even going ahead with any Kingsman movies he's got. I'm nervous for him.
Yeah, this movie is a mixed bag. It does offer some really fun and cool moments, but not for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Left me frustrated, but it was entertaining. I will say that there's a lot of entertaining aspects to this movie. It's just they should have cut some things out, tighten it up a bit, not make us think so much. But I gave it actually 3.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it, didn't love it, but I was pretty entertained just because of Sam Rockwell and the rest of the cast. It was interesting. It was different. And that's where we're at, but it could have been much better.
I'm probably more at a 2.5 out of 5 for myself. I actually walked out of it being like, it was okay. And like in hindsight, the more I've thought about it, it's almost I've soured on it a little bit more. But to your point, we're in a theatrical landscape right now where there's like barely any new releases. I think the only big ones on the horizon are like Lisa Frankenstein and then Madam Web here in the next couple of weeks. And so I guess if you're like really wanting to get out to the theater, I can give this a recommendation in the sense of like, it is a decent movie to go see on the big screen in a theater. Like that's probably the best experience you're going to get of this movie. Not that the experience of this movie is going to be life-changing in any way, but if you're really itching to go to the movies, like you might find some things to like here, especially with so many stars in it. Like I like John Cena and all these people. So there's some
John Cena's in this. I didn't see John Cena at all.
But there's some redeeming qualities. You just like have to look pretty hard.
Yeah, and I'm curious when this is going to show up on Apple TV, because maybe it's a good investment for Apple TV, but we'll see.
It took a really long time for Killers of the Flower Moon to show up there streaming normally because they put it on the store first, and that's where Napoleon is right now. It's on the store first, which it'll be on the service I'm sure soon. I don't know how long it'll take for Argylle to make it there. It might end up there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Apple TV is doing. No one really has Apple TV. They're not really showing these movies in theaters. Argylle's, but like Napoleon didn't have a strong run at the theaters. I felt like it came and went. Killers of Flower Moon, amazing film, but that wasn't. They're bringing that to theaters now.
I feel like at least with Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon, maybe less so Napoleon. Killers of the Flower Moon, I don't know if Apple was really banking on it being a huge box office success. I feel like at least with the critical response and the Oscar noms, it's kind of doing what they wanted it to do. And I'd say maybe it was still worth the money spent, even if it's going to come at a loss. This one, Argylle, I don't know how you justify $200 million on this one.
No, but Apple TV has the money to do it, I guess. I will say that.
Yeah, if anybody does, it's not like they're hurting for cash or anything like that by any means. I'm trying to see right now what Napoleon has made because I think it's done pretty well overseas. Napoleon has apparently made $220 million worldwide, but that's a movie that also potentially could have cost as much as $200 million. So it's unclear. Wikipedia at least says it's anywhere in the range from 130 to 200 million. That's a pretty, it's a difference of $70 million depending on what end of that you land on. So at least it had some box office success, even if they're not really breaking even with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for movies until I guess March. But what we got going on next? Lisa Frankenstein, we hope to talk about. That's for sure. And then what are we watching?
We should
Madam
be seeing
Web.
Lisa Frankenstein. Hopefully, we'll get to see the One Love, the Bob Marley movie starring Kingston. I'm gonna butcher his name, Kingsley Benadier, and then Madam Web, of course. You know, who everybody's looking forward to Madam Web. There's no bad word of mouth on the internet about that one. Everybody's just looking forward to it and expecting a masterpiece.
I'm hoping for one.
I'm looking forward to it just because I hope that it's decent. I am not expecting much. I'm kind of going into it with like I hope that this is so bad it's good kind of mindset, like so bad that it's at least fun. I hope it's not so bad that it's bad. I just don't see a scenario where critically this movie is well received at all.
No, but if it's
But-
better than Argylle, I think it's a win. Let's just put it at that. If it's better
Sure.
than Argylle, that's a win for this movie. And we shall talk about that soon. But yeah, that is
All
it.
the
for-
Ezekiel heads out there, let's get together. Let's rise up. Support Madam Web.
Let's get all the spider web heads out there to support this. But yeah, we got plenty more coming your way from the Moviegoer Society. Once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms, over on Letterboxd, weekly at Fresh Out the Podcast, most importantly here, weekly on the Moviegoer Society podcast.
Yeah, please check out previous episodes of the Moviegoer Society. Also check out, nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. You name it, Nerdtropolis has it for you. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.